In the last 2 weeks on this channel, we've talked about dementia behaviors, aggression, violence, and what we can do about it. 2 weeks ago, we talked about common causes of dementia, aggression, violence, and frustration. Last week, we talked about coming up with your dementia emergency plan if your person with dementia got super angry, super upset to the point where you were worried about your safety. We talked about the 4 steps you can take. And then in today's video, I want to talk about some general rules of thumb, some general strategies, approaches, and tips that you can take to hopefully prevent those violent, aggressive outbursts from happening in the first place, right? Whenever we can prevent something, that is great. So I'm going to share 5 general approaches. The 5th one is my favorite. I think that the majority of caregivers could implement each of these strategies. Even if just one, it could make a big difference. Also, let's say you're a person with dementia, they started to get angry and you want to intervene somehow. At the very end of this video, I'm going to share you a quick tip where you can intervene and hopefully prevent it from escalating into a full-out blowout. First tip, number 1, it's all about prevention. Whenever possible, you want to plan ahead. So you want to think about what are the general times of day your loved one is at their best, right? For your loved one, when do they seem to be functioning at their best? You want to plan for activities or outings or any stressful experiences or tasks to happen during those times. So for instance, if your loved one does way better in the morning, that's going to be the best time to try to get them to a doctor's appointment versus in the afternoon. If your loved one does better in the morning, that might also be the time to try to get them to take a bath versus waiting until the afternoon. Now, the other way to apply this tip on planning would be to think about if you wanted to take your loved one to a doctor's appointment, for instance, when is the best time for that doctor's office? Meaning, when is it less crowded? When is it going to be less busy so that the person with dementia isn't having to wait so long in the waiting room? If you want to take your person with dementia out to a restaurant, when is that restaurant not as crowded, busy, overwhelmed, so you're not going to be waiting for a table or there won't be a bunch of noise? Because as you remember, 2 weeks ago, a lot of distraction, overstimulation can lead to aggression, frustration for the person with dementia. You can think about things like when is the traffic at its worst or seems to be better. Like just really taking a few moments to plan as best as possible. There's going to be some things outside of your control, but if you are trying to get your person with dementia to do anything stressful, try to do a little bit of planning and prep ahead of time for how can I reduce all of those extra things that might make it more likely they're frustrated. Too many people around, too much noise, too much traffic, increased time in waiting, and etc. Number 2 kind of goes along the same themes. Try to make appropriate changes and adjustments in the environment, right? So if there's a lot of clutter around, if there's a lot of distraction around, what can you do to help minimize that? For instance, if your person with dementia is in an environment where there's music coming from the kitchen, the TV is on from the living room, and there's a bunch of people talking around, is there a way that we can reduce or limit some of those distractions to help hopefully prevent the agitation and frustration from increasing? Number 3, however possible, try to ensure your person with dementia is getting adequate sleep and exercise. That's going to look different for each person, but lack of sleep and lack of activity in general can increase antsiness, agitation in general. So plan for some scheduled activities throughout the day to help get them moving if that's possible. Number 4, giving them simple choices or simply making the choice for them if they get overwhelmed with lots of choices or have a hard time giving you responses to open-ended questions. So if it's time for lunch, you might want to offer them, would you like pasta or a sandwich for lunch instead of what do you want for lunch? And if they get still overwhelmed with the simple 2 choices, you can just make that decision for them and say, here, I made you a sandwich for lunch. Number 5, this is my favorite. As much as possible, try to develop a routine for the day for you and your person with dementia. You don't have to be super stringent or strict with it, but a general flow for how the day works can help eventually help the person with dementia kind of know what to anticipate next. So if breakfast happens first thing in the morning, what happens after breakfast? Maybe it's always a game. So they come to know after breakfast there's game time, right? And what you have for breakfast and the specific game you play, that can change day after day, but it's just generally like, what are we expecting and anticipating at this stage in the day? Routine can be incredibly helpful for the person with dementia. Okay, now this is very important. If you're still with me, this is going to be an important part of the video. Let's say your person with dementia is starting to get frustrated. They're starting to get upset. What I want to ask you is, do you know what those signs are? Your person with dementia, so many people think they go from like totally calm and fine to a full out blowout, but there are signs usually happening in between. Sometimes the person might raise their voice. Sometimes they might just start responding with really short answers. Sometimes they might like be wringing their hands or moving their hands a lot. They might be more jittery. Sometimes they might be pacing. Do you know the signs of mounting frustration and anxiety for your loved one, and how can you intervene at that point, right? You can intervene by asking them for help with something, asking them to come to another room, asking them to hold something, asking them for a favor, telling them about a story. Oh, look at this picture that I just saw of our grandson John. Look how big he's getting, right? You get to like detract from that mounting frustration that's happening. You might also just be able to remove your loved one from the room, or remove whatever that frustrating thing is in the environment that's contributing to the frustration. You might be able to lower the volume or reduce the distractions that you think are contributing to the frustration, right? So for instance, if your person with dementia is like watching TV and they're like doing a remote control, and you can start seeing they're pressing the buttons quicker and they're starting to get really angry at it, you want to intervene at this point rather than just letting them build and fester and get that upset, right? So this could be a situation where you're like, oh, hey, honey, look at this picture that just popped in. Or, hey, can you grab me that pen right next to you? Or, oh, hold this for me. I wanted to check something out on the TV, right? Whatever it is, that's your moment of intervention to help prevent it from escalating. Now, for those of you that are like, all of this is general, I don't really think this is going to work a lot for my situation, or it seems too simple, I'd like you to try at least one of these. Give it a try, right, to see if it can help. It totally can. But if you are like, I'm more advanced, I'm more intermediate, I've been following you for a while, I've been watching your videos, like I want more specific step-by-step, what is the process I can take with my person with dementia, and you have one specific behavior that is just eating away at you that you wish you could just stop, I want to invite you to check out my Behavior Changer program for a limited time through Sunday, which is like just a couple of days away. I'm going to give you full access to that program for $7. You have only till June to go through it, right? So you have to be like committed and willing to go through this. You have the entire month of June. It's a 5-step process, 5 videos. You'll get access to those 5 videos over the course of 5 days, 1 video a day. The link to join is in the description for serious Careblazers only.